गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीवन। गुड मॉर्निंग तान्या जी, चतुर्वेदी जी, गुड मॉर्निंग। बच्चे, अगर मेरी आवाज सबको आ रही है, इफ आई एम ऑडिबल एंड विजिबल, प्लीज लेट मी नो इन द चैट सेक्शन एंड देन वील बिगिन विद द क्लास। इफ आई एम ऑडिबल एंड विजिबल, प्लीज लेट मी नो in the chat section. Just waiting for your confirmation and then we'll begin with the session. We have to talk about a very important initiative that we have been bringing to you guys every single weekend. Me and Anshum sir, we have been working day in and day out to help you guys for your preparation in your mains examination. So we are handling current affairs of various topics and various subjects at weekends so that you can prepare well for your mains examination. Now, in these sessions, in these classes, what you get is a basic to advanced level understanding of all the current affairs that are going to be important in your answer writing for mains 2023. This is a series of classes that have been happening on weekends as a part of Mission Mains 2023. So I recommend every student who is seriously preparing for mains examination to be attending these sessions. Also, all those students who are wanting to prepare for next year, that is 2024, to get a deeper understanding. Vaishnavi ji, welcome to the class. Good morning. So all those individuals who are also preparing for 2024, for them as well, these sessions are important and relevant. And everybody who's wanting to know how to read current affairs and how to understand the relevance of current affairs for your mains preparation, for even for your prelims preparation or for your preparation for UPSC civil services examination, be it 2023 mains or 2024 or even 2025. This particular set of series, the mission mains, is for you guys. All right. Now, let's begin. I hope the presentation is visible to everyone. Hmm. So, we will be talking about just a brief overview of my qualifications and the years of experience, the kind of subjects that I've handled. We will be considering the topics now. First and foremost topic that I want to discuss is technology in the aid of farming community. Now, we have to understand how relevant technology is for farming sector, and particularly this is going to be relevant for GS3, and it is also going to be relevant for not just technology wise, it is also going to be relevant for GS2 when it comes to policy relating to agriculture. So agriculture sector से related policies की अगर मैं बात करूं, और अगर हम बात करें with respect to the GS3 component, jahan par agriculture sector of the economy and science and technology and applications of science and technology aata hai, all those areas we will be able to utilize this particular information. Now, as far as the recent updates are concerned and the recent technological developments are concerned, this topic is going to help us out with that and also help us out with the applications part. For example, the Kisan Rail scheme and direct benefit transfers, soil health card, one of my favorite schemes and initiatives, that is soil health card, then e-national agricultural market, then neem coated urea. All these are very you see them as in silos. These initiatives are seemingly in silos, but they are not. They have a broader repercussion, they have a broader impact. इनका असर जो है वो एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर के मल्टीपल एंगल्स पर रहता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ आई वर टू टॉक ओनली अबाउट से सॉइल हेल्थ कार्ड स्कीम, soil health card scheme can be linked with nutrient based subsidy processes of fertilizer sector. So you can use soil health card as improving environment, making agriculture more sustainable, and also making sure that the health of the soil is the basic parameter of utilization of fertilizers, the kind of fertilizers that are required. So you can not just control the inputs, you can also make sure that the farmer is not spending more than what is required. So वहां पर आप fertilizer sector की ही अगर मैं बात करूं तो you can use soil health card scheme. And apart from that, based on soil health cards, you can also ensure access to credit for farm sector. So soil health card scheme itself is a multi-pronged approach to improve agriculture in India. सो इस तरीके से अगर आप सभी स्कीम्स एंड प्रोसेसेस को समझेंगे, देन यू विल बी एबल टू मैनेज गुड एंड वेरी really deep thought process with respect to one topic itself. और मेंस के अंदर आप जब आंसर्स लिखते हैं, your approach, your scintillating approach towards topic, which means when you're talking about one thing, how quickly can you interrelate it with others, ये एक ऐसा फैक्टर है जो स्टूडेंट्स को एक्स्ट्रा मार्क्स फेच करके देता है. सो व्हाट हैपेंस इज व्हेन स्टूडेंट्स आर राइटिंग आंसर्स, जब भी करंट अफेयर से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चंस रहते हैं, सो व्हेन दे आर राइटिंग आंसर्स, द प्रॉब्लम दैट दे फेस इज इवन दो दे नो लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स, जब वो पढ़ते हैं तो उनको बहुत सारी चीजें पता चल जाती है. फॉर एग्जांपल दिस टॉपिक व्हेन वी विल बी स्टडिंग, तो आपको बहुत डिटेल में कई सारी चीजें पता चल जाएंगी. बट the problem is with respect to representing them in your answers. Remember one thing, जब आप एक आंसर लिख रहे हैं and you are in a flow of thought process, in that case you should not break away to make sure that everything is incorporated. What you can do is create some space, draw some flow chart or a diagram to represent all this information that you wanted to share, but you either don't have the number of words with you, or you don't have the space with you, or it is going to be difficult for you to manage the time. उस समय आपको इस तरीके से आंसर्स में अपने डायग्राम्स, फ्लो चार्ट्स इनकॉर्पोरेट कर लेने चाहिए. सम अदर इनिशिएटिव्स करके एक टैबुलर फॉर्म में आप बाकी सारी चीजों को मेंशन कर सकते हैं. दैट इज गोइंग टू हेल्प यू आउट अ लॉट. Now, moving further, let's understand all the initiatives that the Honorable Prime Minister had talked about a couple of months back, and we will be talking about them in detail and understand their nuances. Chali. Now, as far as the latest World Economic Forum report, drones have a potential to bring technology led transformation in Indian agriculture. But to what extent? What are the challenges? What are the challenges to incorporate such technology in Indian agriculture, where you have around 80% of the farmers as small and marginal land holding farmers? So, in that case, we have to see, we have to look at what are the prospects. In India, somewhere around $600 billion US dollars is the expanse of the agriculture sector in terms of monies. The sector, although, is not an equitably distributed resource. It is not equitable. You have large farmers, large land holding farmers, you have medium sized, you have small size, and you have micro sized land holding farmers. So these MSME, so to say, farmers, these small, medium, large, micro land holding farmers, these individuals, these are from the poorest to the richest, right? Now, what would drones help us do? The basic reasons to use drones is to mechanize agriculture. Now, we have to consider one thing. What would that be? Understand this quite simplistically. We are a population of somewhere around, now growing, 1.4 billion people. Let's presume that it is 1.4 billion individuals जो कि बैठे हैं इंडियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट के अंदर. Now in India particularly, 1.4 billion individuals, what are they doing? How are they managing their resources? How are they ensured employment or employabilities? When you start using technologies that replace these 1.4 billion people, in a country like India, it becomes a very big challenge. No doubt you want to ease the farming practices. You want to reduce the stress and the burden, the physical burden of a farmer. But when you replace them with technologies like drone farming, for example, or truck farming, for example, which is replacing, not adding value, but replacing. There are two things: adding value and replacing, right? फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आपको अगर अपने घर से कहीं पास की शॉप्स पे जाना है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, एंड यू हैड नो टू व्हीलर, आप गाड़ी नहीं निकालते, आप पैदल जाते, राइट? Now when you are using electric mobility, for example, you are using those electric e-bikes, then you have reduced your walking chances next to zero. Then you would take that bike, unless and until it is not charged, you would take that bike to the market. One, you don't require helmets. Two, you don't require anything else. So basically, when you start replacing things, you are creating problems. Whereas if you are adding value, for example, an added feature, for example, airbags were an added feature to the cars for safety purposes. It is not replacing any person or any job, right? For example, AI is said to have impact on the job market as well. It will be replacing a lot of jobs, है ना? So based on that, we have to understand UAV technology or the drone technology. So UAVs, or commonly known as drones, they are basically an aircraft which do not have these aircrafts do not have any human pilot. So it is like driving, or rather flying, a remote controlled airplane which is of smaller size. So in fact, drones themselves are categorized on the basis of size. So you have micro drones, you have medium sized drones, and you have large sized drones. UAVs, the kind of UAVs that we are talking about, they are not all small size. Depending upon the usability, depending upon the applicability, उनके size का variation रहेगा, and we will be studying. Now, UAVs are basically a component of an UAS, unmanned aircraft system. एक सिर्फ drone नहीं है जो उड़ रहा है. There are multiple things, because you need a ground-based controller. It is not going to fly on its own. खुद से थोड़ी उड़ जाएगा भाई, है ना? हवाई किले थोड़ी है. Now, based on that, drones have been categorized into five major types. Number one, nano size, less than or equal to 250 grams. एक पाव, 250 grams. That means these are small drones of this size. People gift these drones to their friends, to their kids, and to smaller children, so that they can learn UAV technology. This is allowed to be flown in closed environments, in in areas which is not going to jeopardize national security, for example. So these drones, these nano drones, because there is an a UAV policy that we have to follow. This policy is very important. Make sure that you read it through, because in the next class I want to take up this challenge, and I want to make sure that you know about this policy. तो आप जब पढ़ के आओगे, तो आपको कुछ चीजें पहले से पता हो. Now, nano, which means less than 250 grams. फिर उसके बाद माइक्रो आ जाता है, from 250 grams to 2 kilograms. It seems quite light, even 2 kg seems light, but make it fly, then you would know. 2 किलो की चीज को अगर आपको फ्लाई करना है, then you would know the size of this drone itself. This micro drone or micro UAV increases many folds. Then you have the small drones, which range from 2 kilograms to 25 kilograms. I have flown these nano drones. This is really, really fun to, fly. And it's an activity to tell you or to improve the students or any child's साइंटिफिक टेम्पर. तो वो सोचते हैं कि ये फ्लाई कर रहा है, कैसे कर रहा है, इफ यू आर कंट्रोलिंग इट, हाउ इज इट मूविंग फॉरवर्ड, हाउ इज इट moving backwards, and how is it rolling upside down, and many other features that these drones have. Then medium sized drones, for example 25 kilograms to 150 kilograms, and 150 kilograms se upar you have the large size drones, generally those drones which are used for recce. Recce means reconnaissance. Reconnaissance means to know कि चल क्या रहा है. थोड़ा वो जो कहते हैं ना, वो पड़ोस वाली आंटी होती हैं जो नजर रखती हैं. Just that way, just in the same manner, you have governments, you have people, you have security personnel who are making sure that everything is working fine. So they are looking from a distance. Recce has done इन सटल मोड, ये इनकॉग्निटो मोड में होता है, सो दैट नोबडी नोज कि आप ये काम कर रहे हैं, राइट? सो दीज ड्रोन्स आर जनरली यूज्ड, एंड आल्सो दीज ड्रोन्स आर आल्सो यूज्ड जस्ट इन केस यू हैव टू हैव क्लोज प्रॉक्सिमिटी, ताकि पता ना चले कि कुछ आया है. अगर दूर से करना है तो लार्ज साइज ड्रोन्स दे फ्लाई ओवर द एरियाज एंड दे बेसिकली ensure this to happen. Further, to revolutionize the Indian agriculture with the aid of drones, what can happen and how it can improve Indian agriculture, we have to understand that as well. ठीक है जी? चलिए, let's एक सेकंड दीजिएगा बस. Just let me just confirm. Just a second. Test streaming. Just waiting for them to respond. think now it is working fine. लोगों के लिए तो सब सही चल रहा है ना? Yeah, चलो. So it is working fine. Now, let's try and understand. I've given you an example जहां पर प्रिसिजन फार्मिंग के अंदर पर ड्रॉप मोर क्रॉप का प्रोसेस जो है हम रेगुलर बेसिस पे इसको सुनते हैं, समझते हैं. प्रधानमंत्री कृषि सिंचाई योजना is the one that we link it with. And now we have to understand the impact of using drones. As per the World Economic Forum report, the report suggests that drone usage can reduce the cost of application of precision farming techniques by 20%. And it can also mitigate health hazards of manual work and thereby promoting precision farming. Now, the impact of health or impact of various technologies or impact of various manual work, what kind of manual work are they talking about? They're talking about implementation of you know, nutrients based fertilizers. They are talking about pesticides, insecticides, weedicides, etc., which have a negative toll on the health of the farmer, and they're trying to mitigate that or improve the the money efficiency of the farming practice. So drones can help you reduce the costs by 20%, which is a big number. But World Economic Forum has not gone into the studies of the applicability part. It has not gone into the parts where it is it possible for a farmer in India to utilize it. They are just suggesting that if it happens, it can reduce the cost. That is one thing जो कि आपको समझना होगा. भाई मर्सिडीज तो सबको पसंद हो सकती है, बट will they be able to afford it or not? So that is the basic idea that World Economic Forum report does not really cater to. Now drones will help them collect data. For governments, it will help them collect data and make resource efficient nutrient application. It can reduce the input of farmers in terms of fertilizers, क्योंकि farmer का major खर्चा उसके inputs में रहता है, and inputs में major component रहता है fertilizers. But the farmers, being unaware about the science of fertilizers, many a times use more than many times more than the fertilizers that are required, and that is one thing which has a negative toll on soil health. It has a negative toll on the farmer's health. It has a negative toll on the input costs as well. So this data collection can facilitate crop production forecast, can also make evidence based planning a possible reality for farming sector. So you can collect evidence from this data, and based on that you can plan for the future. You can start planning the type of crops that you want to grow. You can start planning the type of policy that should be implemented with respect to credit, credit accessibility and credit forecast as well. Because many times you would see these kisan credit cards, KCCs. These kisan credit card schemes have been linked with credit access, has been linked with the farming activities, with the farming processes, where farmers are suggested to grow certain crops in the notified area. So the government notifies certain area and notifies a crop within that notified area. Now if you follow the suggestions or limited. Just give me a couple of seconds, guys. I hope now it will not be a problem. Ram Ram ji. Now I hope it will not be a problem. It should not be a problem now. Now, सो बेसिकली एक्सटेंशन सर्विसेज की जो एक्सटेंट है इंडिया के अंदर, इट इज क्वाइट लिमिटेड, एंड दिस इज वन प्रॉमिसिंग प्रोसेस, पॉलिसी प्रोसेस, दैट कैन हेल्प यू रिड्यूस farm level poverty. It can help you improve nutritional standards at local levels, and it can certainly have a positive impact on rural education, and a lot of other socio-economic factors and parameters can be improved using extension services. Now, if you start using drone technologies, these drone technologies can help you serve better even in extension services. Just give me a couple of seconds, guys. I need to confirm that the stream is working fine. Just give me a second. Crops, I've given you a lot of examples of various schemes that drone technology can help. So it can be integrated with the geographical information system, GIS mapping. It can use Google Earth satellite imageries to help you improve and streamline the processes for Fasal Bima Yojana, for example, to help crop cutting experiments, crop loss estimation, insurance determination, dispute resolution mechanism can be improved and resolved. Matters can be resolved using drone technology and drone data integrated with GIS and all other processes of data collection in the farming sector. The problem with the farming sector is the data collection is quite eschewed. One thing. Second thing, the problem with the farming sector is the fact that when you talk about farming sector, it is more or less based on primitive technologies and more or less based on primitive methodologies of information dissemination. If you start improving the way information is received, if you start improving the way information is being disseminated, then certainly there can be improvements in the agriculture sector to a certain extent at least, है ना? चलो, फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर मैं आपको बोलूं, मैं आपको एक सिंपल सा एग्जाम्पल देता हूं. अगर मान लीजिए कि आपके पास डेटा अवेलेबल है एट व्हाट एरिया, बिकॉज ये डेटा कलेक्शन जो है वो ऑफिशियल कॉर्नर से होता है, एंड इट इज नॉट साइंटिफिक मेथड्स which are used. What if I were to collect data at the rural level, और रूरल लेवल में भी लोकल लेवल, क्योंकि गांव बहुत बड़े भी हो जाते हैं, तो लोकल लेवल पर मेरे को ये डेटा कलेक्शन पॉसिबल हो फॉर द एंटायर वास्ट एक्सपेंस ऑफ दिस कंट्री, एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर के अंदर लोकलाइज मैनर में, that these are the nutrients that are available in the soil. Now, based on those nutrients, what is the closest proximity of availability of fertilizers? Now, if fertilizers are very in a very good manner available, if I need an X amount of fertilizer for N और for P और for K, अगर मुझे मालूम है कि मुझे N P K में से N और K fertilizer ज्यादा चाहिए, so why am I supplying P fertilizer to that area? So I would I will start reducing the supply of P fertilizer in that area. Now, based on the requirement of the soil, I have manipulated the supply chain of fertilizers. Imagine how much money the companies will be able to save if they improve their logistics based on these data. And further, not just this, implementation of it on the soil itself can be improved using drone technology. वो तो आपका last mile implementation process हो गया या application part आ गया where you are using drone technology to basically supply the fertilizer to the field. Further, what if I were to tell you that based on the fertilizer, based on the soil health, based on the nutrients, you decide on the crops and you start creating an entire ecosystem. Now, this entire ecosystem of sustainable precision farming need not have an entire shift from basically humanized agriculture towards mechanized agriculture. You don't have to do that. But still, if there is good and relevant amount of data collection, then certainly you can save a lot of bucks, and you can also ensure a lot of improvement and enhancement of efficiency at the farming sector. You can improve productivity and yield as well, क्योंकि जिस सॉइल के अंदर जो क्रॉप ग्रो हो सकती है, अगर उसी क्रॉप को वहां पर ग्रो किया जाए, नहीं तो what happens is you are just asking a fish to climb a tree. So basically, you will be pushing it to do that, and to avoid and to make sure that it happens, you provide it with the fertilizers that are not really necessary for the soil. So basically, soil health degrades because of this reason. And that is one of the reasons why the government issues notifications with respect to the kind of crops that are to be grown in a certain area. Now, so you can have better cropping patterns. You can also capture backward and forward linkages. Just as I gave you the example of backward linkages, which is, for example, the supply side of the farm, where sugar industry is located close proximity at close proximities to either places from where it has to be exported or places of supply of raw material, that is sugarcane. Now, what are the challenges before the Indian farming community? 80% of the farmers are either small landholders or marginal landholders, which means that they are 0 to 1 and 1 to 2 hectares of land holdings. And in fact, I've given you an example that from 2015, 2016, the agriculture census of 2015, please note it down. 2015-2016 agriculture census explained this, that the average landholding size for 0 to 1 and 1 to 2 combined was somewhere around 1.2 or 1.3. For 0 to 1 it was around 0.43. For 1 to 2 it was around somewhere 1.5 or less than 1.5, which means that it is not that all those individual farmers who are belonging to marginal landholding farmers category, they have 1 hectare of land. No, they don't. The average land holdings actually tells you a lot more in detail. The farming sector in India is dwindling because of fragmentation of land. ठीक है जी. Now these drones, they will cost around 1 lakh rupees to 10 lakh rupees. The input cost itself is so high that will increase the cost of cultivation by 45% and will reduce the costs by only 20%. So ये फिक्स्ड कॉस्ट को बढ़ा देगा 45% से, और वेरिएबल कॉस्ट को 20% से रिड्यूस कर देगा. How effective do you really think it would be? And at the very onset, I've given you an example. Now, to address this, you can do one thing. You can create farmer producer organizations. You can create civil society organizations. You can have, mem- uh, you can have agglomerations of farming sector. You have so many examples. For example, Amul was one really fine example in that case, where you have farmers coming together and creating marvels of production levels and yields. Now you can do that, but to what extent would it be possible in a vast country like India? So you have these FPOs working well, particularly in south of India, below the Vindhyas, but above the Vindhyas, it has been rarely seen. It is a very rare and an uncommon phenomenon. So to make sure that it also happens, and one of the most degraded soils in the country belong to the region up north. So basically, if you want to implement such a technology and if you want to have such changes, you'll have to start from grassroots realities. तो आपको नीचे से change करना बहुत जरूरी है. The government provides subsidies to the tune of 40 to 60% to the cost of drones, but unki implementation and skill development of individuals so that they can handle, so that they can handle such technologies. उनको train करना बहुत जरूरी है. Flying a drone is not an easy task. Well, I'll tell you, I flew a drone and it was very difficult to understand how it really works. And I'm an engineer, and I tell you, it is difficult. And how will we make sure that farmers who are good with farming activities to upskill them? If we can upskill them, is it good for us to upskill them in a technology which might replace hands, for example, or is it good to upskill them in in processes which make the food? So these are the broad challenges that drone technology will have. Now, what are the government initiatives that the government brings on the table so that it can increase and promote drone technology in India? Number one thing, the Indian arm of Swiss-based firm has launched a drone yatra to cover 10,000 kilometers across 13 states from Mancher near Pune in Maharashtra. This is one example. A few firms such as Unnati, which is an agri-tech startup, it has also launched drone services. So these technologies, these practices, they are cropping up. And you would notice that focus has been in the south of India. The reason being that it is better, financially better planned. The agriculture comparatively is financially better planned. Reason being that you have more instances of contract farming, more instances of your FPOs and farmer producer organization, farmer producer companies, FPCs and FPOs. Now the firm plans to spray 20,000 acres of land by the end of 2022, and to make sure that drone sprays capacity can increase 4 times next year. So it is providing services. It is an agri-tech startup. So sprays can be fertilizer spray or insecticide, pesticide spray as well. Now, Indian government is also popularizing the use by assisting to purchase the drones for demonstrations, demo purposes के लिए भी. And drone purchases are being done by custom hiring centers, CHCs बोलते हैं इनको, and they are given 40% assistance. Basically 40% money is taken up by the government. The center is providing 6,000 rupees per hectare as a contingency fund to the farmers to hire drones from CHCs. So there are custom hiring centers across the country from where the farmers can hire the drones, and it can be at the cost of 6,000 rupees for 1 hectare. So hectare के basis पर charges लग रहे हैं services के, and then they can return the drone. So it is like lending out money, or it is like lending out technologies. So this one thing can have the it can help you break those gaps, and it can bridge those gaps of demand and supply sides. Now central government has also notified a new set of rules for drones in 2021. For example, it has abolished the need for various approvals. Earlier, it was a huge load of approvals that the person who was wanting to fly a drone had to have. For example, certificate of conformance, certificate of maintenance, import clearance, acceptance of existing drones, operators permit. These were OPs basically, authorization of R&D, organization, then student remote pilot license, and a lot of other things. Now, it shall be developed as a user-friendly single window system, these CHCs. For example, there will be minimal human interface. Most permissions will be self-generated. Just to give you an example, now draft rules have reduced the airport perimeter from 45 kilometers. मतलब एयरपोर्ट अगर यहाँ है तो उसके 45 kilometers तक आप ड्रोन फ्लाई नहीं कर सकते थे. Now they have reduced it to 12 kilometers, and they have probably increased their burden but eased the way drone technology can be utilized. The rules have stated that no flight permissions would be required to fly up to 400 feet in green zone. तो 400 फुट तक अगर आप लेकर जा रहे हैं तो you would not need any flight permissions. Otherwise flight permissions are required green zones के अंदर above 400 feet and up to 200 feet in areas between 8 to 12 kilometers from airport perimeters. So if you are from 8 to 12 kilometers, then up to 200 feet you can fly without any flight permissions. Otherwise you would need flight permissions from ATC, air traffic controller. Just a second, guys. Further, पहले आपको पायलट लाइसेंस चाहिए होता था for certain categories. Now you don't need any pilot license for micro drones, for non-commercial use, for nano drones and for R&D organizations. अगर पहले की बात करूं, सो नैनो ड्रोन्स के अंदर तो पायलट लाइसेंस की रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं थी, बट अदरवाइज यू नीडेड पायलट लाइसेंसेस. There would be no restriction on drone operations by foreign owned companies registered in India. So you have to be registered in India. That is one thing. The ministry will also facilitate development of drone corridors which can be utilized for cargo deliveries at higher levels. So making sure that you can use drone technology, reduce the burden on Indian roads, and cargo delivery can happen from drone technology as well. So uska benefit ye hai that, for example, if I'm living on the fourth floor, so the person will not have to basically uh, climb all the flights of stairs. So you can have a drone landing on the roof and they can supply the material. All right. So this can be one thing which can be beneficial. Also, it can reduce the burden on the roads of the country as well. Now, of course, these rules can provide certain safety features and they have real-time tracking system as well. Geofencing. What is geofencing? This is your homework. You will tell me in the next class what is geofencing. ठीक है जी. आप अभी अगर क्लास में बताना चाहते हैं तो अभी बता सकते हैं, but I would recommend that in next class, which will happen next week, you will tell me what is this geofencing. Now, geofencing and various other technologies can be used for real-time tracking purposes. Further, what is the need? We need to scale up drone use in agriculture sector. At present, it is only 10,000 aerial vehicles, which means across the country we are only using 10,000 drones. Number two, civil military engagement should be promoted to realize gains from cross industry applications. So you will have to increase the engagements with military, with civil, civilian side of administration as well, so that you can improve the application of drones. Otherwise, there is always a tussle between these two basic agencies of the country. Then consultations can be held. For example, countries like India, they are our strategic partners. They have AI enabled drones as well, which they use for mapping plots, assessing crop damage, and even plucking only ripe apples. So save. Let's move further and talk about rare earth metals. This topic, I'm telling you guys, it's very important and relevant for a prelims examination as well in the next year. मेक श्योर ये बहुत टाइम से न्यूज में रहा है. इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट एंड रेलिवेंट फॉर एवरी इंडिविजुअल. Recently, CIA had urged the government to encourage private sector mining in rare earths as well. So, rare earths, what are these rare earth metals and what is their utility? There are a group of 17 elements. अब ये 17 elements का जो list है, it is not too big a list. You can learn their names, but याद नहीं भी रहते तो एक दो के नाम याद रह जाए मेंस में लिखने के लिए बहुत है. 17 number, the figure itself should be known, remembered. Number two, for prelims purposes एक बार इनके सबके नाम सुन लो. मैं बोल रहा हूँ lanthanum, cerium, praseodymium. Then you have neodymium. Then you have promethium, samarium, europium, gadolinium, terbium, dysprosium, holmium, HOL, L is silent, holmium, erbium, thulium, ytterbium, lutetium. Then you have scandium and yttrium. दिस इज हाउ यू प्रोनाउंस दीज नेम्स. ठीक है जी. सो ये नाम आपने सुन लिए हैं. इन नामों को जहन में रखना, थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखना. दे आर लस्ट्रस, सिल्वरी वाइट, सॉफ्ट हेवी मेटल्स. दे आर lustrous, they are silvery white, they are soft, and they are heavy metals. Heavy metals because their atomic mass is more, for that reason, not because कि वो बहुत भारी हैं. No. So that basic differentiation you should know. So these metals, they have unusual fluorescence, they are conductive, they have magnetic properties. They are just like metals, so they have some basic properties but in an enhanced manner. They make it, these properties make it very useful for them to be used in alloys. They can be mixed well in small quantities with more common metals such as iron, and then they can add to the value of iron and such common metals, for example. Now, the exception of highly unstable, only one rare earth element is highly unstable, and that is promethium. If I'm not wrong, there was a movie by the name of Prometheus as well, brought up in Hollywood. There was a movie on the name of this element itself. Prometheus was the name of the ship, if I'm not wrong, and वो सही मायने में वो भी बहुत unstable थी. So rare earth elements, they are found in relatively high concentrations in the earth crust. They are not as rare as the name suggests. They are found in high concentrations, except the highly unstable promethium. They occur in many other minerals. They are recoverable as byproducts from phosphate rocks and from spent uranium leaching as well. स्पेंट यूरेनियम लीचिंग का मतलब क्या है? जहां पर आपकी यूरेनियम रॉड्स होती है न्यूक्लियर फिजन रिएक्टर्स की, उन रॉड्स को जब लीच किया जाता है, बेसिकली साफ किया जाता है, तो उसमें से आपको ये बाय प्रोडक्ट्स मिल जाते हैं. फर्दर, as far as these reserves are concerned, as far as the zones and areas of supply and production and yield are concerned, so total world reserves are estimated at 121 million tons REOs, rare earth oxides. China alone accounts for 44 million tons, followed by Brazil, Vietnam, which is 18% each, and 15% at Russia. China has 90% of the world's rare earth production. Production. अगर आपको सप्लाई की बात करनी है या आप कहें कि रिजर्व्स की बात, तो इट इज 44 मिलियन टन्स. 44 by 121, basically around one third. But if you talk about production, it is not one third, it is 90%. Chinese economy is increasing its dependent on REOs. Other major producers include Australia, US, Russia, Malaysia, and Vietnam. Now, in India, we will be considering what rare earth elements can offer and what is the significance as well. As far as the significance of rare earth metals are concerned, they can be used in manufacturing batteries. Right now you are moving towards EV technologies, electric vehicle mobility, or e-mobility, basically. So if you are doing that, then you are also using lithium. So lithium ion batteries, LIBs, which we have discussed in the previous class, they are required for batteries to be used in this. No. So rare earth elements, they are of course needed, but they are needed in tiny proportions. They are mostly tiny components of more than 200 consumer products, including mobile phones, computer hard drives, electric and hybrid vehicles, Semiconductors, TFTs और flat screen TVs, monitors, high end electronics, इन सब में आपको rare earth elements मिलते हैं और आप यूज करते हैं. Electric vehicles, which India has an ambitious plan of to convert a large percentage of its transport to electric mobility. 80% of the country's two and three wheeler fleet, 40% of the business buses, sorry, 30 to 70% of the cars, they will be EVs by 2030. That is the government plan. So, in that case, it is going to be highly relevant that these rare earth elements can be extracted and can be supplied well and seamless and smooth processes of supply chain should be there. Supply chain mechanisms should be improved. Clean technology के अंदर, clean energy के अंदर they have a critical role. Then industrial usage भी है. For example, cerium is used in glass polishing. Lanthanum is for car catalysts or optical lenses. Manufacturing of magnets, neodymium magnets होती हैं, praseodymium magnets होती हैं, dysprosium magnets होती हैं. They are crucial for manufacturing of magnets. They can be used in wind turbine technologies and drone technologies in various other industries as well. But there are issues relating to the extraction of these rare earth metals. For example, they are very difficult to mine. Now, they are abundant, more abundant than their name implies, but they are very difficult and it is costly to mine them, process them, and to clean them. One, difficult to mine. Number two, it is costly a process to process them and clean them. Then the impact on the environment. The chief concern with respect to rare earth elements is if they bound up in mineral deposits with low level of radioactive elements like thorium, exposure can even be linked to an increased risk with respect to lung, pancreatic, and other kinds of cancers. So rare earth elements rare इसलिए हैं, ठीक है जी. Then you have the Chinese dominance in the entire market. I've given you the example 90% of the production in the world is happening in China, whereas China only holds one third of the resources. Then you have monopoly of a few players, a few nations. They have caused problems with respect to the kind of price gimmicks that are happening around the world because the concentration of reserves in a handful of few countries. So us wajah se there are problems with respect to pricing and all supply chain logistics. Then supply chain forming forward and backward linkages will create problems because it is these resources are mostly limited to a few countries and particularly one country in question, that is for example China. If you were to talk about India, one important resource is monazite. This is the principal source of rare earths, including thorium. So thorium के साथ साथ rare earth metals का एक important source है monazite, and it is present in the coastal sands, जिनको आज आप monazite sands भी बोल देते हो. So it has direct linkages. India is fifth largest reserves of rare earth elements. Fifth largest, nearly twice as much as Australia. But ज़्यादातर हम import करते हैं because we need it in the finished form and we have to import it from China. हमारे पास और कोई alternative नहीं है. Just to give you a broad overview and a glimpse of the entire, basic say segregation of information with respect to the rare earth metal production and reserves. So this is the data. These are reserves in million tons. 44 million tons coming from China. India has around 7 million tons. तो इंडिया तो ऑलरेडी वन फिफ्थ है चाइना के, तो हम चाइना से ही रिसोर्सेज लेते हैं. यू टॉक अबाउट यूएस हैज वेरी लेस, अराउंड 1.4 million tons. Russia has 12. You also have Burundi, which has some reserves. Thailand, Myanmar, Australia has half as of India. Then India के पास double reserves हैं ऑस्ट्रेलिया के comparison में. Otherwise what you would see is you will have similarities, and you will have similarities of resources and processes in Australia, in India, and in certain parts of Africa, given that the plate tectonic theory explains a lot of resources distributed in these regions that I've named for a certain purpose. So Vietnam has good reserves, Brazil has good reserves. So, but the problem is that you have the hegemony of China. We have a government PSU, we have Indian Rare Earths Limited, IREL, which is a government undertaking, and KMML, which is a Kerala state government undertaking, which have been actively engaged in mining of monazite sand minerals from placer deposits and localized deposits. Okay, chali. Now, further, as far as the foreign trade policy from the previous decade, that is 2015 2020, the 5 years foreign trade policy that we had and that we have basically extended in one form or the other, the effective policy on export and import is needed. Import of these ores, concentrates of rare earth metals and of rare earth oxides, REOs, told you earlier as well, it is not because the availability is rare, it is because the production is highly costly, and that is why it is very difficult to extract these. Then competition from the world, India is, it's open itself to rare earth sector, but it is up for those competitive areas as well. So China, one of the leading players, is we are competing with China for demand and supply side, and we need to attract huge amounts of capitals to set up facilities just to make sure that we are at a level playing field with countries like China. So वो एक major challenge है. Then further, there are toxic byproducts which are carcinogenic, which is one of the most say dreaded diseases or ailments of all times. Then there are suggestive measures for India as well, so we can make sure that we use this technology in a better way. For example, we have a new department for rare earths. So this department for rare earths, it's not Dr. Dre, if you know आजकल ये चल रहा है ना, if not IF, basically if you know ये वाला एक्रोनिम चल रहा है आजकल. सो उसी एक्रोनिम को अगर मैं यूज करूं, तो डॉक्टर ड्रे आपको पता होगा, आई डोंट नो इफ यू नो दिस पर्सन और नॉट, एमिनेम एंड डॉक्टर ड्रे. चलो, so Department of Rare Earths under Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. So you should know that we have create the best move is to create a new department of rare earths. There is no such organization as of now. If it was to exist, it would exist in Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, so that it is easier for the exploration, exploitation, refining, mining and various other activities. So क्योंकि इस मिनिस्ट्री का एक्सपीरियंस है इस फील्ड के अंदर, तो आप इस मिनिस्ट्री के साथ इसको लिंक करेंगे तो इट विल बी बेटर. सेकंड थिंग, allow private companies to have access and to involve them, oversee policy formulation, focus on attracting investments. That should be the purpose of this department. Promote R&D. Then they should allow the private sector to take over the task, act like it, process the beach sand minerals within the appropriate environmental safeguards as well. Now, before I go on and discuss anything further, I want to make sure that everybody knows about a couple of things, which means that I want you to know about the comprehensive batch which is being run by Sriram's IAS on an academy platform. I am taking a public administration, and the referral code is mentioned right here, that is SRIRAMS. This is a bilingual batch. ये एक bilingual batch है, already live and running है. अगर आप इस बैच को ज्वाइन करते हैं तो आपको एक चीज इंश्योर होगी, और वो ये है कि ना सिर्फ आप, बल्कि आपके टीचर, आपके मेंटर का भी वही एक टारगेट है, एंड दैट टारगेट इज टारगेट 350. And that target will help you, it will help me, and it will help both of us to understand the subject very well in such details that you will not find it anywhere else. And that is not just a promise, it is a mission, it is my vision. और आप इस चीज को देखेंगे क्लासेस के अंदर, अगर आपने मेरी पुरानी क्लासेस देखी हैं, पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का ओरिएंटेशन सेशन अटेंड किया है, जो कि यूपीएससी आर्टिकुलेट चैनल पर ही अन अकेडमी के अवेलेबल है, तो यू वुड नो व्हाट आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट. अगर आपको कोई भी और डाउट्स हैं, देन यू कैन मेक श्योर दैट यू फॉलो श्रीराम सर, यू कैन फॉलो मी, दैट इज सनत दत्त भारद्वाज, ऑन अन अकेडमी प्लेटफॉर्म. और अगर आप फॉलो करते हैं तो आपको रियलाइज हो जाएगा कि कितनी सारी क्लासेस ऑलरेडी हो चुकी हैं. आप वहां पर स्टूडेंट से बात कीजिए, आपको अंदाजा होगा कि हम क्या कर रहे हैं, किस तरीके से उस फीट को अचीव कर रहे हैं. Alright. Apart from that, that is not just it. There are multiple optional subjects as well. But right now, I want to also talk about Mission 1 Year with Sri Ram's IS, which is for 2024. If you're planning for next year, then we are providing foundation to advanced level understanding of all the concepts, one stop solution for all your UPSC civil services examination preparation problems. It will give you live classes, you will have mentorship, you will have tests, more than 600 hours of live classes for both prelims as well as mains. We are covering answer writing, we are covering prelims related topics, we are covering current affairs. Every single aspect of the exam is being covered through this Mission 1 Year with Sri Ram's IS. Again, if you want to follow this course, then also you have to use this referral code, that is SRIRAMS. इसके अलावा एक फोन नंबर याद रख लीजिएगा, 8585858585, तो 5 बार 8 5. और उसके साथ साथ we are running offline courses as well, so it's not just online. Okay, चलिए, now let's move further and talk about our topic. So we've understood the basic nuances of rare earth elements. So what are the challenges and what are the suggestive measures for India? We have to understand that. Okay. So you need to have an autonomous regulator. You can create an autonomous regulatory authority in the name of Rare Earth Regulatory Authority of India, right? You can have RRAI. Then you need to have better coordination so that supply side, demand side works quite well in tandem. Just a second. Further, you can encourage Indian firms to participate in the entire process so that you can have domestic reforms, as well, based on the involvement of Indian firms. Domestic reforms are needed. Indian companies can be encouraged to form such junior exploration businesses, just like they are doing in Indian Ocean region, to prospect rare earth elements, feed value added products into Indian market. So वहां पर आपको सिर्फ और सिर्फ एक एक्सप्लोरेशन नहीं, उसके साथ साथ वैल्यू एडिशन कैसे होनी है, वैल्यू एडेड चेन्स कैसे काम करेंगी, सप्लाई चेन्स कैसे काम करेंगे, आपको यू विल हैव टू क्रिएट द एंटायर इकोसिस्टम. वो जब तक नहीं होगा, इट विल बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर द सिस्टम टू सस्टेन. और इंडियन पर्सपेक्टिव, green goals, the critical minerals, emerging technologies, they are right now the major need of the hour for achievement of green future goals, including electric mobility. All right. Further, let's talk about having minimum taxation on big businesses. Now, I'll give you a brief overview of this topic right now, but we will discuss this topic in the next class, in the upcoming classes. Now, various members of European Union, they have agreed in principle to implement the minimum tax of 15% on big businesses. For example, now last year we had seen 136 countries who had agreed upon having to redistribute the tax rights across jurisdiction, enforce a minimum tax rate of 15% on large MNCs. So having a minimum tax will ease the burden of businesses. One, it will reduce the tax avoidance and it will improve tax compliance. It will also improve and it will improve tax compliance. It will also improve the beloved ease of doing business index as well. Now, what is BEPS? Base erosion profit shifting. This is basically a way to plan the one's taxes or plan strategies which is being used by multinational companies so that they can exploit the gaps and mismatches of tax rules in various countries to avoid paying tax. You should, when you are reading about taxing big businesses, you should read about one particular thing, and that is general anti avoidance rules, gar. इनको पढ़िएगा, इनकी हिस्ट्री, इनकी सिग्निफिकेंस को ध्यान से देखिएगा. I will be covering GAR and related activities with respect to minimum taxation on businesses, big businesses, in the upcoming class, in the next class. Right now, just to give you a broad overview, what is BEPS, and then we'll move further. है ना? आज की क्लास के अंदर ज्यादा नहीं करेंगे, इतना करेंगे. Now, so you have multinational companies using those gaps between various tax regimes of different countries to make sure that they can avoid taxes. Now, this particular process of eroding the base and shifting the profit has costed countries around 100 to 240 billion US dollars in lost revenues annually across the globe. There are some schemes which being used are illegal, most are not. बहुत सारी schemes हैं जो illegal है, कुछ नहीं भी. So based on that, you have basic tax avoidance being done by various companies. Then you have a working group which is being created within OECD G20 inclusive framework on BEPS. Over 135 countries are collaborating on this. What are the concerns with BEPS? You have reduced tax revenue. आपका टैक्स का रेवेन्यू कम हो जाता है. क्यों? क्योंकि किसी कंपनी को एक लूप होल मिल चुका है लॉ के अंदर या रूल्स के अंदर. Then there is a disproportionate impact on domestic firms, small firms particularly, because now the small firms can easily be targeted, and big companies, big fish, big eats small हो जाएगा. और उस वजह से big companies, because now their cost of running businesses is reduced because of reduced taxation that they have avoided, they can give products at much more competitive prices. It might seem good for the end consumer, but it is bad for competition. It is bad for domestic small firms. They die out in the process. This sets a very wrong precedence that you can avoid taxes, and tax as such is not some liability that you have to take, right? Now, today we will stop right here, because in the next class I will discuss with you what are the OECD's plan. But before we go on and discuss OECD's plan in the next class further, we also have the public administration batch that I'm running on an academy platform. So make sure that you are a part of this batch being offered to you by Sriram's IAS. The batch has already started, and also make sure that you immediately go and check the demo sessions. तो आपको पता चल जाएगा ये एक bilingual course है. ये एक bilingual course है, मैं बार बार बता रहा हूँ. ठीक है जी. Until then, till next time, make sure that you keep calm and stay tuned to Sriram's Eyes. Thank you.